new rule that says he can't.
So will he state them exactly what he's in?
I by him, he's gonna verify with him. Where is wherever he posted at. So if he posted at the front lobby, that's where he has to be at, right? So, I'm not aware of that. He wouldn't be able to participate. Like, I would have been the difference when there was no public access when Councilmember Perazzo was everything couldn't come in.
His question is that there was no specific place of where who's going to be there. Like, is it in the lobby? Is it in his room? Is it?
If it was in the room, we would have noted the room number.
But see, he didn't
Yeah.
specify any information or anything like that. He just gave you this information.
I can't, Oh, did you? Yeah. How come I didn't?
Good evening and welcome to the Montebello City Council meeting of April 26th. I am calling this meeting to order at 6:03. Mr. City Clerk, can you please call roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Present.
Councilmember Jimenez, Councilmember Melendez, Councilmember Tamayo,
Here.
Mayor Torres.
Here. Before we go into closed session, I would like to note for the record that I believe Councilmember Melendez's participation this evening to be improper due to the deficiency in the Brown Act notice posting on the agenda for this evening. As it shows on the agenda, his teleconference location is listed as Weston, New York, Grant Central, 212 East 42nd Street, New York, New York. Zip code 1000 or 10,017. It does not list the exact room and location from where he'll be participating, and it is the intent of the Brown Act that for the public to be able to participate when members participate from another location by teleconference, that the exact location be shown, whether it be the lobby or a specific room. Since that location is not listed here, I would ask that Councilmember Melendez recuse himself from this meeting, and particularly with the concern that any votes that he's a part of the majority today could potentially be invalidated if it's found that indeed his participation was improper. It does threaten the business that we're conducting. So I would ask Mr. Melendez recuse himself. And Mr. Melendez, if you could please confirm.
I just thought, what would be the difference? I mean, I understand your point. What would be the difference from when you took the meeting, Mayor, when you took it over telephonically and just listed in the current meeting list? Anything else? I mean, what's the difference between that and my situation?
If you go back to the postings that I've done in those instances, I have posted my room location as directed by the city attorney and staff.
So if I listed in the current, just like you did, wouldn't that be the same thing?
So for example, I have a couple of the communications where I was asked to specifically list what room I was participating from. These communications go back to May 2022 when I was in Sacramento participating by teleconference. Even though I gave the location of the hotel, and I believe it was for a Cal Cities conference, I was advised specifically that the exact location within the hotel still needs to be identified, and that was direction by the city attorney. Additionally, I have other communications where I specifically list where I'm participating from, and also instructed that I should discuss the exact location with the hotel staff members as soon as possible to be included on the agenda.
Well, I mean, I think that's just fine. I don't agree with that. I mean, I think there's just in different situations, even with the mayor pro tem as well. When individuals show up to your house, she didn't allow for them to come in to speak. And I don't know. I just disagree with your point of view.
As for this evening, Mr. Melendez, will you be recusing yourself?
No.
Okay, and then with that, we'll recess into closed session. Actually, I apologize. Before we go into closed session, if we're taking, is this microphone on? It doesn't, right? Hello? Hello? I guess it's just not projecting. Mr. City Attorney, if you can please announce the closed session items and read the statement of public oral communications.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. On tonight's closed session agenda, the City Council will consider the following. We have item number 1, which is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. This conversation is authorized under Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 1. The case is Flores versus City of Montebello. Case number is 20STC, V as in Victor, 11854. Second item on the agenda is the public employee discipline dismissal release. This conversation is authorized under Government Code Section 54957, subsection B, subsection 1. Third item on the agenda is public employee performance evaluation. This conversation is authorized under Government Code Section 54957, subsection B, subsection 1. The title is City Manager. Lastly, number 4, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. This conversation is authorized under Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 4. And for the public comments, at this time, the public may submit a speaker card to the city clerk staff for closed session items. Prior to the beginning of the statement, speakers will be called in the order received. Please be aware that the maximum time allotted for the members of the public to speak on closed session items shall not exceed 3 minutes per person. State law prohibits the city council from taking action or entertaining extended discussion on a topic not listed on the agenda. Please show courtesy to others and direct all your comments to the mayor and city council. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. Mr. City Clerk, do we have any comments?
Yes, we do have one speaker card for closed session.
Please proceed.
Speaker is going to be Edward Franco.
Mr. Torres, Ms. Peralta, and council. I'm here again because I see that we have the city manager on the closed agenda. I'm really disappointed to see that. Mr. Torres, I've tried to work with you, talk with you several times in trying to deal with this situation. I've been wanting to see what we can do to work together. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing it go both ways. I'm talking and not really getting anything back. And it's just really disappointing to me to see that. And with that in mind, I understand that we're losing a very good employee very soon. And it's sad to hear that, yet it angers me why it's happening. So, well, I guess I'll cut it short. With that in mind, I just want to let you know personally, and just to tell you up front, that I definitely plan on doing a recall. So you might want to just look out for that. So you can expect one coming soon. Ms. Peralta, you might be in that one too, all right? So just a heads up for both of you. Thanks.
That concludes all the speaker cards for closed session.
Thank you very much. We'll recess into closed session and be back at 7 p.m.
Councilmember Melendez, if you can hear me, I'm going to hang up and call you. Hello, Councilmember Melendez, if you can hear me, I'm going to hang up
I would like to reconvene this meeting. Mr. City Attorney, can you please give a closed session report?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. With respect to item number 1, staff made a presentation. City Council provided direction. No final reportable action was taken. I'm going to skip over item number 2 for the moment. Item number 3, staff made a presentation. The council provided direction. No final reportable action was taken. With respect to item number 4, this discussion was related to a contract approval with Alliance and the City Council, or the city council met with staff in closed session to discuss the parameters of previous agreement approvals with Alliance. Due to threat of litigation regarding the previous approvals and the finance director's representation that the city manager has approved the terms, the city council agreed to move forward with the project with the said terms. It was a unanimous vote of the city council. With respect to item number 2, a representative of the city attorney's office was not present. Special counsel will report out for item number 2.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. I have special counsel here via phone to report out on item number 2. Ms. Castañón?
As for item number 2 was discussed and there is no reportable action, but we will report back at the next scheduled meeting.
Thank you very much, Ms. Castañón. And that concludes our first section of business. Moving on to the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. City Clerk, if you can please lead us in the invocation. And Councilmember Tamayo, if you can lead us in the flag salute.
As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community. Keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
For the Pledge of Allegiance, please put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With the consent of my colleagues, since the Assistant City Manager isn't quite back to say whether or not there are corrections to the agenda, we'll move to ceremonial items and presentations and give her a minute to come back. So first of all, we have a bunch of wonderful young men and women, a bunch of wonderful young folks and volunteers and teachers and parents here to celebrate quite an accomplishment. Today, we'd like to recognize the Montebello Indians cheer team for their outstanding performance at the JAMS Youth State Championship. This was the first time that the team entered a competition against several teams across the state, and we are very proud that they successfully defeated the competition. The Junior Gremlins placed first place for sideline performance. The Gremlins placed first place for show cheer performance. The Junior Pee-wees also placed first place for show cheer performance, and the Junior Midgets placed second place for both sideline and show cheer performance. The City Council and the city at large extends our congratulations to the girls and their families for making Montebello proud. If we can please give them a round of applause, and the council can please join me. Nice job. Excellent. Congrats. Here you go. Very nice. Oh, yeah, all the way across. Nice job. You got to take a step back a little bit.
I'm the cheer coordinator for the Montebello Indians. We're really proud of our girls this season. This is the first time, like the mayor mentioned, we've competed in this competition. It was against other teams from Northern and Southern California, and luckily our girls came out on top, which we're really proud of them for. They practice really hard, 3 days a week from 6 to 8 p.m. They go home, eat dinner super late, and they still have to do homework, and they still manage to maintain anywhere from a 2.5 to a 4.0 GPA. So we're really proud of them for being student athletes. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And if we can get a photo, if staff member can help us out here. Before we continue on, I do want to note one thing. So if I can ask my colleagues to entertain me, I would like to make a comment for Denim Day, and then also if you guys would like to make any comments, you can, or also feel free to do so. So is there any objection? Ms. Jimenez? Mr. Mayo? As we took the photo right now, you will notice that my colleagues here joined me in wearing denim today. Today is National Denim Day in recognition of the survivors and victims of sexual assault. I myself have someone that's very near and dear to me that has suffered, and it is a pain and a scar that is something that you never grow out of, that you may overcome, but that, Ms. Nicholas, something that people never grow out of, even though they may overcome it and still live very healthy, productive lives. And so I just want to thank my colleagues for joining me today. And we're relaxing the dress code a little bit in a room that is definitely one of business and definitely one of getting business done. But it's also about having care and compassion for our community. And so today we stand in solidarity with those that have been victims and suffered from sexual abuse. Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to make a statement at all?
Yes, just thank you so much for recognizing this day. And just to kind of give more of a historical background about Denim Day, which I think it's always important in regards to raising awareness. In 1992, the Italian Supreme Court overturned the conviction of a 45-year-old who raped an 18-year-old. They argued that since the victim was wearing tight jeans, she must have helped the rapist remove them, thereby implying consent. The following day, the women in the Italian parliament wore jeans in solidarity with the victim. The call to action emboldened the California Senate and Assembly to do the same. Since then, wearing jeans on Denim Day has become a symbol of protest against erroneous and destructive attitudes about sexual assault. And so I just wanted to give that background, and also just thank you, Mayor, for recognizing Sexual Assault Awareness Month through Denim Day today.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Jimenez.
The first Denim Day I participated in was back in 2000 when I joined the Peace Over Violence women who were back then, well, they're at LACA. But the one statement that I make, not just on Denim Day, but every time I wear jeans is, our jeans are not an alibi and our jeans are not consent.
Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. Councilmember Melendez by phone, would you like to make any comments on Denim Day?
Yeah, thank you. No, just to echo what everybody else has been stating, it represents Denim Day, a powerful and important message in the fight against sexual assault and harassment. So I'm glad we're recognizing it, raising awareness, and continue to raise awareness, not just today, but throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And Councilmember Tamayo?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for bringing this here to us. But I am also in support of Denim Day and have been. I know in the city of Los Angeles, we would also celebrate it today, April 26th. So thank you.
Thank you, colleagues, once again for joining me. Assistant City Manager, are there any corrections to the agenda?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Thank you very much. We will move on to number 6, the Homeless Count 2022 report.
Good evening, Mayor Torres and members of the council. Thank you for having me. My name is Matt Bates. I'm the Executive Vice President of CityNet. We're the agency that conducted a census for your city, a homeless census for your city last year. And so I'm here to make a presentation on that. I do have a number of slides that I've prepared. You have the full report. Just a word of warning, I'll go through some of the slides relatively quickly because I want to be able to leave room for questions that you all may have. But they're there so that if there's anything that in particular that you want to discuss or have questions about, I'm prepared for that. So just in terms of the presentation overview tonight, I'll give you a brief overview of our organization, and then we'll talk about homeless census in general, and then your results here in Montebello, which have been broken down into 3 categories, some brief observations, and then any questions that you may have. So CityNet, we're a nonprofit organization. We work in 7 counties across the state. We are a full-service homeless services agency, so we operate shelters, we do street outreach and engagement, we do police diversion programs where calls come in to our teams of multidisciplinary providers that go out in lieu of police going out, and then we also do censuses and point-in-time counts which is what we did here. We are experienced as a census provider. This is a list of the censuses that we've done. You'll note on there that we've also done the Orange County point-in-time count. And I bring that up now just because you may be thinking about the Los Angeles County point-in-time count, which was done earlier this year in January in Montebello. And I'll talk a little bit about the distinction between our homeless census and the point-in-time count. A census overview has 2 points, or 2 goals. One is it's to identify a baseline number, and secondly, to determine the demographic characteristics. We do this by what's called a survey-based count, and the goal of the census is to talk to every homeless person that we encounter in the city. So there's no statistical sampling that occurs. The point-in-time count, in contrast, uses a statistical sampling methodology. To be fair and to be clear, HUD takes no issue with the County of Los Angeles using statistical sampling in its methodology for the point-in-time count, because the county is so large in terms of numbers of 88 cities and I don't know how many square miles and how many population, but it's just a mammoth task to even get the point-in-time count data that they get using the statistical sampling. It would be probably impossible to do a survey-based count where you tried to interview each homeless person in the County of Los Angeles at one particular point in time. So they just don't have the time to do it. What we did here in Montebello is much different. The goal was to talk to every single person that we encountered homeless and to get their story, get their information. We did this on 2 occasions, on June 28th in the early morning and then on June 30th in the late evening. The city was mapped ahead of time in partnership with with the agencies here in the city, including your MCAP team and your city staff, to identify areas that we might be likely to encounter homeless people. And then on each occasion, we covered all the maps. The goal was to cover them all twice. And so twice in the morning of the 28th, and then twice in the evening of the 30th. And the goal there was to catch people either as they were getting up for the day and starting to move around, or settling in for the night. And sometimes that's a different population depending on their lifestyle. We did this in partnership with MCAP, which is the Montebello Community Assistance Program, as well as other agencies within the city to try and be as thorough as we possibly could. So the results are broken down into 3 different buckets, if you will. The first is the city of Montebello proper plus the areas that MCAP serves. So that would be the additional AMSA. It's abbreviated on the slides. The additional MCAP service areas. So there are other areas outside of the city proper. The total unsheltered count for those 2 areas is 164. If you look at the map there, you can see because we used GIS technologies on our phones, we could drop a pin at each location that we did the survey. The blue section you're familiar with as the city map, but you will see that there are dots that are outside of those areas, outside of the blue, and those would be the areas that MCAP covers, but that are not within the city proper. And so that's how, by combining those 2 data sets, that's how we arrived at that total number. Now, in the city of Montebello, again, this is just the blue part of the map, we counted 93. So that number is smaller. And so just this next set of slides is just about the unsheltered count in the city of Montebello. And there's the map that you can see. The composite homeless person, recognizing that every homeless person is different and their story is different. And indeed, one of the benefits of a survey-based count is that you have the time and availability to hear some of their stories and their unique characteristics. We do create a composite because the data does fall into certain categories. And so viewed as a composite, the typical homeless individual within the city of Montebello is a Hispanic or Latino male between the ages of 45 and 64, sleeps in Montebello, and is chronically homeless. Now, chronically homeless is a HUD-defined term that means that the person has a disability and essentially that they've been homeless for some extended period of time. And so that's important because there are interventions that are evidence-based, particularly for chronically homeless populations, and then there's funding. In terms of the age, this is the age breakdown. This is kind of, typical to what we would see, but you see the biggest categories there, mid-40s to mid-60s. Gender breakdown, again, very common for what we would see in terms of male-female breakdown. Duration of homelessness, did want to look at this just to draw your attention to those first two columns, which are less than 1 year and 1 to 2 years. Not that they stand out relative to other censuses that we've done necessarily, but just to as a reminder that there are homeless people, and that would be on the far right column, 21 plus years, that have been homeless for a very long time. There are homeless people that are very visible and that everybody in the town kind of knows who they are. But there are lots of homeless people that are falling in and out of homelessness at all times. And so it's not uncommon to have 40, 50% of your total population be homeless within the last couple of years. It's important as you're planning interventions, homeless interventions and mediations, because you can create plans for the existing homeless today, but the data shows that there will be constantly people falling into homelessness as time goes on. So you need really a plan for both. How to deal with the homeless that are homeless now, and how can we prevent and divert the homeless of tomorrow. We asked a number of community ties questions to both categories, those that were inside the city proper and those that were in the MCAP areas. And so these are questions to which there's no HUD defined standard or no national standard about community ties, but we think it's important to illuminate the question. So we ask, where did you usually sleep? Where was your last permanent address? What were your other ties to Montebello? And these are things like school, family, friends, last permanent address, grew up here, employment. Just trying to illuminate the issue of who is homeless in Montebello and why they're here. So in summary, for the community ties, we would say that 39% or 30% had their last permanent address here in the city. 52% were living here when they became homeless. 80% usually sleep here. 53% lived here for a long time prior to becoming homeless. And 37% attended their last year of school here in the city. In terms of resource interest, this one was interesting to me when I looked at it, in part because we have done a number of these censuses, and so we can start to compare the data that we found in Montebello to the data that we found in other cities, and even other cities here in LA County. So on the left column, that's interest in case management, and if you take the currently enrolled and the interest in case management, the overwhelming majority of the people that we talked to are interested in case management, which is a loosely defined term, but it roughly means that they're interested in a relationship with someone that will help them navigate their way out of homelessness and navigate the systems that are available to them to overcome the barriers that are in their way from being unhoused to housed. The second column, the column on the right, is shelter. And if you look at 50% interest in shelter, that may seem low to some, but it's actually the highest number that we've ever encountered in Los Angeles County. So to me, that speaks to a clientele that we spoke to that had already become, that there had already been some trust built between them and your city outreach workers that had begun to form relationships with them. So the interest in shelter was higher. Now, in other counties that we find, in general, LA County interest in shelter is lower than other counties, and I think that's, having worked in LA County for many, many years, I think there's a negative stereotype about shelters in this county because people think about the congregation. Turn this on. Oh, it's back. I'll speak loudly if it goes off again. So I was saying, and I know that Montebello, that you have invested in a non-congregate shelter, which I think is again a wise thing to do. And this census was taking place before that opened, so I think that it showed that there was some interest in that. The next set of slides here is the additional MCAP service areas that we looked at. Again, this, as a reminder, this is those areas on the map that are outside the city proper. There were 71 individuals there, and that's where they were located. Now, it's worth noting, if you count, there's not 71 dots on that page, but the footnote notes that if there are multiple people in one location, the dots will be stacked on each other. That's why. But if we were able to zoom in, we actually have the technology. You could zoom in, and they would start to spread out. C. So that was the distribution. The composite homeless person, very similar outside the city to inside the city. Hispanic or Latino male, between the ages 35 and 44, sleeps in Montebello and is chronically homeless. A little bit of, difference you can, again, why I included these slides is, if you have more time, you can go kind of compare the two different categories of people, and there are some interesting differences in terms of not so much in age and gender, but in terms of duration of homelessness. You see here, those first two columns are lower than they were on the other slide. So typically what you've got in kind of the outlying areas are people that have been homeless for a longer period of time. And they're, in many cases, they've established different types of encampments, different kinds of living situations, those that are living within the city. We asked the same questions about community ties for this. Where do they sleep? Their last permanent residence, ties to Montebello. And again, there's a ties summary. I would just say that, again, on the category of community ties, what we see when we do these censuses is what we see here in Montebello, which is that the overwhelming majority of people are local. They're local to the city or local to a neighboring city, to the general region. And they're homeless here because this is where they feel is home to them. They feel comfortable here. They know how to get their needs met. Feel safe here. And we asked a number of those questions, in terms of what do you feel ties you to Montebello? And those were the kind of things that we heard, and that's very common to what we hear. I think it's a common public misperception in many cases that homeless people are coming from some other place, and there is a certain truth to that for a certain percentage of people. But generally what we find is that 75%, somewhere around there, are all local, and then there's a quarter of the people that are coming from other places. But I always feel like if you did a survey of school teachers or lawyers or dentists in your city, you might find the same breakdown, that people have, there's a certain number of people that are in Montebello because that's where they grew up, and other people that were drawn here for other reasons. And those are many and varied. So just moving forward, and we're close to the end, you'll see here that there's a little bit difference, similar interest in case management, a little bit less of an interest in shelters. But again, we didn't define shelters, and our experience as a shelter provider now is that those people that are living in these kind of entrenched encampments that are sophisticated and developed, one of the good options for them is the non-congregate shelter. Some key observations. One is just that investments yield results, and we're seeing that here in Montebello. So your MCAP program, your multidisciplinary response teams, the investment in shelters, that those are making a difference over time. That service interest will grow with varied service offerings, and so not every homeless person's experience is the same. As you can see, looking in the demographic information that we collected, there is kind of there are clusters that are common, but there's also people that fit outside of that. And so to have varied intervention options will lead you to more success. And then system flow. So one of the things that we're seeing here in Montebello that doesn't exist everywhere that we go is the linkages that exist between outreach to shelter to long-term housing. The need for homelessness to end homelessness is housing, but there are steps that take place along the way. And so what your city has endeavored to undertake here, we would applaud and recommend and wish that cities that we work with all across the state would follow, which is to provide linkages and coordination between outreach and engagement, your emergency shelter system, your long-term housing system, and then all of the related like drug treatment and mental health services and physical health services. Aligning all of those resources together as best you can will yield the strongest results in the long run. And that's something to be proud of and to continue to invest in, at least from our perspective. With that, I have reached the conclusion of my presentation. I'm happy to take questions if you have them.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Starting with Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, any questions or comments?
Yes, just some questions and also a comment. I just want to, first off, just express my gratitude and really thank the NCAP team as well as yourself for the hard work and dedication in conducting the homeless count. These efforts don't go unnoticed, and they really do shine a light in the challenges that our homeless individuals are facing here in Montebello, as well as allowing us to understand the need that there is on a council level to begin addressing those needs on a policy level, as well as the allocation of resources. And so it's not an easy job, and I do want to just highlight that and appreciate that on my end. In regards to, and please correct me if this was reviewed, but how do the numbers of the 93 compare to the last homeless count that was conducted?
Are you referring to the point in time count that was done in January of 2023?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have access to that information. I was not a part of that count for the city. I would say though, and I don't even know if they've published that, if LASA has published the point in time count data yet. I know it's around this time that it generally is published. But I would, if and when you review that data, I would just remind you that the methodology is much different from one to the next, because they'll publish their formula, but they use a statistical sampling, and what they do is they'll count a certain number of people, and then they'll project from there, and they multiply by city population and poverty rates, and maybe some other factors, but there was, last time I reviewed their formula, those were the components. And then from there, they yield a number, which is, like all statistical sampling, it's more accurate the larger the sample size. So it's more accurate on the county level than it is when you drill down to an individual city level, because your numbers are so much different. LA County, you're talking about, 60,000 homeless people. Mm-hmm. City of Montebello, what did we say, even counting the both areas, 164. So it's just gonna be much more accurate on the broader level. On the city level, just keep in mind that the numbers are linked to the methodology.
Absolutely. And I think one question I'd like to ask, and I know this is through the advocacy of a resident that really speaks on Homeless Anonymous, and that's something that I was educated in understanding, that there are anonymous individuals throughout our communities that sometimes are anonymous because of their undocumented status, or because they kind of live with families and just kind of roam around, but they're not necessarily counted and considered homeless. How does that come into play when conducting a homeless count? And does it come into play?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And I think one of the ways that we really leaned as an agency on your MCAP team, because they had those relationships, and they had not only knowledge of where people are, but they had laid the groundwork of some of that trust building. Because not only, that is a reality of outreach and engagement, is that there needs to be trust that's developed, and you're jumping into a survey right away, and you're asking these questions that are listed, and many of them are very sensitive in their nature. And, our teams work hard to try and to be sensitive and to be knowledgeable and to be trained in trauma-informed care and those kinds of things, and to set up the questions. But still, we know that that is very much an issue. One of the things, again, that we observed here in Montebello, though, is that because you have a team that's already been in place and has been working with this population, that there was a little bit more trust, and it made our job a little bit easier. But that's something that is a concern when you do these kinds of censuses, is that there are people who are homeless who are very visible. They're in your public spaces, and they're very visible. And then there's others that are trying, by definition, to stay hidden, trying to stay out of the public eye. There's also subpopulations that can be difficult to identify. One that's traditionally difficult is transitional aged youth, because you're talking about, that's 18 to 24-year-olds. And there was a report done in the state of California that estimated that 19% of community college students in the state of California fit the federal definition of homelessness. But of those 19%, only 6% self-identified as homeless, because they either didn't know that they fit the definition of homeless, or they were not wanting to identify as homeless. They wanted to identify as a college student. Yeah. And so they were living in their car, and they were choosing education over housing. They're living in their car, showering in the gym, charging their phone in the library, eating in the cafeteria, getting their needs met the way that they knew how, but they didn't have a fixed permanent residence. So that subpopulation is one that historically is traditionally very difficult to count. Also because it's, visually, that it can be hard with that population to tell, is this person homeless or is it just a college student that is wearing, shorts and t-shirt and just came from the gym. There are a number of challenges within subpopulations to get at that. And what we do is we just try to train ourselves and educate ourselves and ask lots of questions and do the groundwork before we go out to collect the information so that we set ourselves up for the best chance of success.
Yeah, no, thank you for shining light on that. I think that it's very, very true in that transition age of young folks who don't necessarily identify as homeless, but in reality, their circumstances can be considered that of a homeless individual. And how do we begin looking at those populations that are either unseen or forgotten or just don't necessarily consider themselves to be, but also do require the resources. And I think just as a general statement, I thought it was just, very eye-widening and heart-wrenching to see the percentage of ties to our community that were showcased in regards to those homeless individuals who were surveyed. Many of them were either went to school here or their last actual residence was here in the city of Montebello. So what that showcases is that the homeless in our community are those that grew up in our community, are those that worked in our community, are those that resided in our community, and not necessarily the transients that we sometimes just tend to stigmatize as homeless individuals in Montebello. And I think that really speaks personally on the need for council to really consider policies such as inclusionary housing policies that really work towards targeting not only new developments, but in our last California League Cities conference, we learned about expanded inclusionary housing policies that also target older developments that never participated in the in lieu fee when it came to units that are affordable. And so I think that's a really big area where Montebello should start looking at in regards to ensuring that these developments do create units that are affordable by mandate to be able to create that shortage of housing or expand that shortage of housing for individuals that are young professionals or individuals that unfortunately are being pushed out of their homes because, as we've all seen, the high increases in rent is just out of this world right now, and we do have individuals who are being evicted, families that have, I know, called myself or called my colleagues saying, I'm being evicted, how can the city help me? And that's where I think council needs to begin focusing some of those resources and some of those policies in order to help that situation. That concludes my comments and my statements. Thank you so much. I appreciate your input today.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Jimenez.
I'll be brief. Thank you so much. I think this is important to not only, well, the residents often ask, particularly in my area, they have this idea that we have thousands of homeless people just throughout the city of Montebello. And while, again, one person is one too many, is this a presentation that we'll be able to share with our residents?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We've given this presentation and the full report to the city, so you're free to do with it as you will.
Now, with this presentation, it just, as we're going through the slides, it just, again, another reminder of why the MCAP team is so important in our city. And you made that reference earlier where you talked about how the relationship that they're able to build with these residents out there. I've been there a couple of nights, and it's actually very heartwarming and very beautiful to see that they know our staff by name. Are they here? ¿Dónde están? The MCAP team here? There they are. There's like, you could see that they're probably some of their favorite people. So it's really nice to hear that the work that they do, just the collaboration was helpful to bring this forward. Thank you so much for your work.
Councilmember Melendez, any questions or comments?
of all, thank you for the presentation. I echo everything that my colleagues have said, and I just want to raise the point that with the unhoused population, with the homeless population, cities have had to spend every year more and more money, more for resources in order to address the situation and address the issue. And it's not just unique to the city of Montebello, but a lot of our surrounding cities, the majority of cities of LA County. So last week or I think it was last week, the League of Cities, and we were all together as cities united to present and to advocate to the state to provide more funding, because this is an issue that over the last decade has increased, and we've had to allocate from our general fund that would usually go for other resources to address this specific issue. So again, I want to continue to make the plea that we hopefully can get more state funding, more county funding in order to address and implement some of the programs that we currently have. I do want to highlight and just note that the proactivity of the council in the past to assure that Montebello, that we address our unhoused population, that in the past we've taken actions to help our unhoused population, and that we currently have a great program with MCAP that's providing the resources that is helping the most vulnerable of our population, and just continue to build off of that. So I do want to highlight the actions that we've taken in the past and the decisions that we've moved in order to address this issue. But again, thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful to see the whole picture and get some new data points. Thank you.
Councilmember Tamayo?
Yes. I would just like to echo, I know I would like to see what the loss account is and then the overlay of this count. And again, I know there are different methods, but to me, I would just like to see what that looks like, and given the different methods and the different approaches, what that would be.
Yeah, and you remind me, in the way that we frame the questions, we try to follow the HUD standards. So even like asking a question about gender, a demographic question, that in the 10 years that I've been doing that, the way that question is asked has changed over time. And so what we do is we try to keep as many of the questions as we can consistent with the HUD standards, so that when you do get that point in time count data set, you can make as many comparisons as you can, again, recognizing differences in methodology, but at least all the demographic questions that are pretty standard that we asked are pretty standard, same ones that HUD would have asked. And we try to ask them in the same way so that they can be consistent and you can make those comparisons.
Oh, great. And is this the first time that this detailed survey has been done here in Montebello?
It's the first one that we've been a part of, and to my knowledge, it's the first one.
Okay, great. But no, thank you. Thank you for coming to Montebello, for doing this here. It's great to see that Montebello is taking deep interest in this issue. I know, starting with the MCAP team and the groundwork that they've done, as Councilmember Jimenez has acknowledged also. That's very important and a great starting point, I think, for this survey. So thank you for the collection of this sensitive data and turning it around pretty quickly, because I think that's important. So hopefully our job then is to continue to link the data to the services.
And first of all, just want to give a very broad thanks for being in this field. You have a difficult population that you service. You have a difficult population that you respond to in terms of municipalities and cities. There's a lot of significant feelings and experiences that can play into these conversations, and doing the groundwork and trying to be a part of the solution is extremely admirable. So I just want to thank you for jumping into this field to really try and uplift our community. So we appreciate your work. Following a little bit along some of the questions that my colleagues have said, I'm still unclear on how your formula differs from LASA's. On a quick check of their numbers, in 2020, Montebello had 170 that were counted, and in 2022, that number raised to 227. I believe your figure showed 79. And as you said, like when it comes to statistics, if you're putting in multipliers saying, if you're looking at rates and including that in your calculation, I think that might start to answer some of the questions that my colleague had in terms of the unhoused that are unseen. But if you could just clarify a little bit more, like your methodology and the calculations that go into that number.
So yeah, so our number is, there's an individual attached to each number. We reported in the report how many actually responded to the survey. Usually it's around 75%. There's about a 25% refusal rate. If someone refuses, we do mark them out as an observation, and we mark down, according to HUD guidelines, whatever we can observe, our best estimate based on appearance, what we can observe. This is why it's also important to have consistent teams, because we're going back to the same area, and so they can remember if they saw that person the previous time, and also to be partnered with the MCAP team and other city staff who know the population very well and can say, oh yeah, this is a person we interviewed before, or this is a person that didn't want to interview before, and so that we can deduplicate the data. But we didn't use any statistical sampling, so no multipliers. So that number that we counted was actually what we counted, like homeless people that we talked to and we interviewed, and then those that we identified as homeless, but that either we were only able to get limited information from. So for example, what that looks like, if we were to encounter a tent in the, let's say in the MCAP service area, we would not count that as an individual or as multiple individuals. And I know that LASA methodology will do that, unless we'll actually knock on the tent. We'll tap on the post and shout out and say, hey, we're doing a survey. We've got an incentive to, if you come out and answer a few questions, we just want to gather information that we're going to use to get back to the city so that they can plan out future interventions and programs and services. And if someone comes out and talks to us, then we'll count what we can see. But if there's no reply, we don't count what we don't see. So there's, again, I would look at the, in the LASA report, there will be a full description of their methodology, which they'll use to tell you how they derived that number. But our number was all what we physically were able to count and those that we were able to talk to.
Thank you very much. What is the value in having dual counts, a LASA count and the one that you've provided?
Well, yeah, the LASA count is mandated by HUD. So every continuum of care in the country that receives HUD dollars is mandated by HUD to do a similar kind of point-in-time count. And they're very prescriptive in what that looks like. It has to be in one of the last 10 days of January. It has to be one day. So you can count on multiple days, but you have to ask the question, were you homeless on that day that we chose, that one day in the last 10 days of January? So they limit the amount of time that you have to collect the data, and they mandate it to any COC that receives funding. So that's a HUD-mandated project that's unfunded. So COCs have to come up with their own funding for it. Now, some cities, because the data is limited for its utility on the local level, that's why they've reached out to our agency to do these kinds of censuses, and that's kind of the gap that we filled, is that we can come in and take more time and generate more resources relative, because again, we go out on 2 days with multiple teams and we cover the maps 2 times each day. So we can just be more thorough and take more time and ask more questions and add questions to it because we have the time to be able to do it and get more actionable data that's gonna, it's gonna give you a more solid number. Again, one of the goals is to give you like, what's your reality in terms of a number, which is important to cities to know. And then secondly, who makes up that number and what what are the demographic factors that roll up into that number. So they don't have, you wouldn't have to do a census with us, and many don't. Many just rely on the HUD data, and that's what they use. But in California in particular, there's been a lot of interest in cities, and again, I'm sure you all know very much about this, but in terms of wanting to be able to enforce community laws and regulations around anti-camping and loitering, and needing to be able to provide a certain number of beds at a certain ratio, that number becomes very important. And so cities really want to understand what that number looks like. Now, my theory into what, if your question, you're not asking this question, but an embedded question in there is like, why would losses numbers be higher than CityNet's numbers for a city like Montebello? And my guess is that what losses, their formula is looking at poverty rates and looking at population size of the city and saying, based on those two factors alone and what we counted, this is where the number should be. But they're not looking at the fact that you have interventions that maybe other cities haven't invested in that are connecting homeless people to resources so that they're not homeless. And so they're looking at your city based on a number and based on certain characteristics of the city, but they're not looking at the interventions that the city's invested in that have yielded from my view, have yielded a positive impact.
Thank you very much. And that actually kind of leads into my next couple questions here. It's a little bit of a two-parter. This might be more appropriate for Ms. Salazar or for Chief Pelaez or a member of our MCAP team. But the first question is, are these numbers as provided going to be used for any reporting or funding applications? And the second part, hearing that there may be a risk of undercounting and having that straight count, is there a risk of losing funding or having our applications impacted due to a possible undercount?
I'm going to have Angelica Palmeros come and support Chief Pelaez on this answer, as it's multifaceted. So, and also Angelica has some very intimate knowledge of how LASA does their counts, and I see she's standing. So she can probably answer a little bit more robustly as prior to what CityNet did this year, because she was part of LASA's count in the prior years here in Montebello.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members. I'm going to let Angelica answer the questions because she's, obviously collecting all our data and working with the grants and how they all tie in together. So she's obviously going to have that knowledge of that. So, Angelica, I'll let you go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Well, what we are doing with CityNet, basically, it's looking at a personal story. We're trying to understand the struggles that our community is facing based on their input. So it's very personalized to Montebello. It guides the interventions if we're looking at evidence-based, It also looks at funding. And I think when you're able to provide a funder such as SAMHSA or the HUD with the breakdown of mental health disorders or the breakdown of substance abuse impacted individuals or what the struggle is, and age in terms of our area, then it becomes more appropriate for our city. LASA creates, obviously they do a methodology that's, kind of an estimate as well, because we also participate in the LASA account. We partner, but this one's more for us to understand who's in our city. Many times there's this part, that they came from somewhere else. These are not people from here, and so I think this provides a lens of who we're serving, and the dollars are actually going to residents in our community. So that's one. It also helps shape the story when applying for funds. And we're not losing any money because we take losses and what we've learned and we combine it. Because at that night that we counted or during the day, that was the obviously whoever appeared on the street. As you're talking about our invisible homeless, it's hard to quantitate. So we also estimate we have a certain population, But this one in particular provided a more descriptive issue. They provided, what's going on. So for us as a city, I personally like to understand what our clients are going through. from their perspective in order to shape, best practices and also provide services that are really helping that community. And it's input. A lot of grants like to hear that you have the input from the community. And, as you guys have always, encouraged, is that community provides input of what services they need. So I think that's what CityNet provided for us in order to build a better understanding and go for more grants. So, and even housing in that perspective.
Okay, so with that reduced number, we're not necessarily at risk of losing funding.
No, because it's at that given night or given day, just like LASA, at any point in time, we're really calculating between 160 to 200 people are homeless every day, or possibly every day in here in Montebello. So it's what we got. But again, it really provides more substantial data in terms of what we're facing.
Great, thank you very much. And just as a final comment and to take off on what the Mayor Pro Tem started, an inclusionary housing policy is something that I think is definitely of interest to this council and something to consider hopefully this year. I brought the idea forward in 2021, and unfortunately, at that time, the council was not interested in pushing that through. But I think at this point, seeing that seeing what the numbers are and seeing that, with a very straightforward policy decision that we can start implementing standards for affordable housing inclusion in new projects, I think that's low-hanging fruit that, if we're gonna be part of the solution, that's something that we should, pursue and implement here. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, for making that point and bringing that up. But that concludes my questions and comments. Thank you so much for the presentation. Much appreciated. Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. Mr. City Attorney, can you please read the statement of public oral communications?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. At this time, the public may submit speaker cards to the city clerk staff for both agenda. It says both agenda and non-agenda. I believe it's just non-agenda, correct? We'll accept both. Okay. Okay, both agenda, got you. Both agenda and non-agenda items prior to the beginning of this statement. Public hearing items do not require a speaker card. The City Council will address non-agenda items during the selection, and speakers will be called in the order received. Those persons not accommodated during this 30-minute period will have an opportunity to speak under public comments continued, after all scheduled matters have been considered. Public hearing, regular business, and/or consent calendar items will be addressed at the time that matter of business is heard in the order received. Please be aware that the maximum time allotted for members of the public to speak shall not exceed 3 minutes per speaker. State law prohibits the City Council from taking action or entertaining extended discussion on a topic not listed on the agenda. Please show courtesy to others and direct all your comments to the Mayor and City Council. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
Yes, we do.
Please proceed.
First speaker is Roger Jimenez, followed by Sister Amy Bailey.
Hi, my name is Roger Jimenez, and the reason why I'm here, again, before, because we needed more police officers. We've been having a lot of issues. There hasn't been any shooting or any homicide lately, but we've been having a lot of issues as far as a lot of trucks coming through our streets and a lot of speeding. And to me, I think those little things like that is a big issue, because the police officers cannot go in there and enforce some of the little stuff that we're having. So to me, it's just, I've talked to the chief, and excuse me, I'm just a little nervous right now. My back has just been killing me right now, so. But we do need the support of the city. We're asking that we just get more officers over there. There's just a lot of issues, little issues that we're having down there. A lot of semi-truck drivers going down our streets. I mean, I don't know where you guys live at. If anybody lives on the north side of Montebello, seeing a 58 or 52 footer semi-truck going through there, if you guys would like it. And those are a lot of the things that we're dealing with. But again, we need more officers, and so whatever issues that are going on right now, I'm asking that you guys support the police, you know, help them out. Whatever issues, whatever the pay, please help the police officers, because those are the things that we're lacking on the south side of Montebello. Again, I don't live on the north side, these $1 million homes over here. I live in the south side of Montebello, which is not, I don't see anything going on over there. If you look at the community, I've been living there for the last 30 years, nothing. All I see right now, nothing personal, but I see a bunch of taco trucks. That's the only thing that we got going there, new. Where do I see like a In-N-Out down there? You know, come on, guys. Put some effort down in the south side of Montebello. Make our south side community be proud, not just here in the north side, that you guys could be proud of. Not everyone here, I don't know who lives up here, but down there, there's nothing going on. And that's what's frustrating. For 30 years, I have not seen nothing besides a Subway. It's been there for years, or the Jack in the Box. Come on, guys. Take a little bit more interest in the south side of Montebello. More officers, more things, something going on down there in the south side. I really feel bad because my back has been a big problem for me. So I can't come in here all the time and to speak a little bit more. You know, Jimenez, you have my last name. I don't know where you live on. I hope you could help us out.
Next speaker is Sister Amy Bailey, followed by Rosa Tamayo.
Good evening, Mayor Torres, Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, City Council members, city staff, and those watching from near and far. My name is Sister Amy Bailey. I'm a Sister of Mercy, and I work for Mercy Housing, a national nonprofit which develops, owns, and manages workforce, senior, veterans housing, and housing for those with special needs. We have been working in partnership with the Congregation of the Mission to create a new vision for their 13-acre DePaul campus at Bluff and Date, which the Vincentians have owned since the 1950s. To be clear, the property is not for sale, but it is very underused, and the hope is it could be repurposed to better serve the city of Montebello. During the last year, we have met with many, many, many individuals and groups to determine the best outreach for our planning process. And we've received tremendous insight and suggestions, and for this, we are very grateful. My purpose here tonight is to invite you and the Montebello community to the input meetings we'll be hosting in May to begin to develop a broad-based master plan for the campus. In keeping with the Vincentian goals, the 5 primary components of the master plan will be for sale and rental housing, market rate and workforce homes, as well as community-oriented open space. So let me repeat, the main components of the DePaul campus, the future plan, will be for sale and rental housing, market rate and workforce homes, and community-oriented open space. And we hope to accomplish a variety. There have been some random, very different rumors roaming around out there, but there will, in fact, and these will be the primary components. Just as it's important for you to know, there is no current plan, and there is no application that has been submitted to the city. This is the beginning of a planning process to get to a master plan. The meetings are scheduled for different days and different times over a 3-week period in order to include as much community participation as possible. So very quickly, the times are on our website, mercyhousingmontebello.org, mercyhousingmontebello.org. Friday, May 12th at 11:30 a.m., Saturday, May 13th at 10:30 a.m., Wednesday, May 17th at 6:30 p.m., Thursday, May 18th at 7 p.m., and Monday, May 22nd at 6 p.m. The meetings will be 90 minutes each and will cover the same material at each meeting and the same information. The purpose of each meeting will be to give updates about the campus master planning process, get feedback, and answer questions from the community members at large as best we can. So thank you for your time. Join us in May. We look forward to seeing you.
Next speaker is Rosa Tamayo, followed by Edward Franco.
Buenas noches, a Mayor David Torres and miembros del concilio.
Good evening, Mayor David Torres and fellow council members.
Yo soy una activista comunitaria.
I am a voluntarily activist.
No es lo que yo estoy hablando. Activista comunitaria.
Sorry.
No voluntaria.
I'm a community activist.
Es correcto. Yo quiero decirles a ustedes que las facilidades de los parques
I want to tell you
les
that
hace
the
falta
restroom facilities are lacking.
Juegos para los niños con necesidades especiales.
Playgrounds for kids with disabilities.
Los parques son la cara que refleja una ciudad. Están muy bien los parques, pero les falta que la inclusión de los niños con necesidades especiales.
The parks reflect the face of the community of the city, and they are fine, but they are lacking also something for those kids with disabilities.
Y desde hace tiempo yo les estoy diciendo de Homeless Anonymous.
And for a while now, I've been telling you about Homeless Anonymous.
Porque hay muchos niños homeless anónimos que no deben de estar anónimos.
Because there are a lot of folks that are part of Homeless Anonymous that should not be anonymous. Sorry, children.
Como nos damos cuenta es cuando estas familias van al doctor, van al dentista, se hacen preguntas, van a los hospitales, el distrito.
When we realize this, it's when families go
Nos
to
damos cuenta de Homeless Anonymous.
Is when families go to doctors, dentists. This is when we recognize who is part of the Homeless Anonymous.
Ustedes deben de traer negocios nuevos a la ciudad.
You should bring new businesses to the city.
Porque se necesita ahorita implementar Rosas Law. Ya les he dado mucho tiempo.
It is important to implement it now. I have given you lots of time.
Yo trabajo mucho en la educación.
I work a lot in education.
Y también en housing, en lo financiero, en lo médico.
Also in housing.
Y en trabajo.
In the financial aspect.
Para personas con discapacidad.
And also in the workforce for people with disabilities.
Porque tiene estas provisiones. Y es un workability para personas veteranos que vienen con discapacidades.
And to workability for people that are veterans and people
Y el
with
distrito
disabilities.
tiene el workability para el dinero federal. Y usted lo sabe muy bien, abogado.
And the district has also the federal money as well as you
And
know, city attorney,
workability.
and workability.
Y ya empiecen a tomar acción porque yo ya me estoy enojando con ustedes. Y yo soy muy revolucionaria cuando yo tomo acción.
Start taking action because I am getting tired and angry and I am a revolutionary.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Mr. City Clerk, one moment. Ms. Salazar, council has made some decisions recently related to some of Ms. DeMao's concerns. Can you please have a staff member reach out to her and talk about some of the upcoming programs and things that we're doing to help those with disabilities participate in our programs and what we're thinking of?
Yes, Mayor, as a matter of fact, we have an item on City Council agenda for consideration for adaptive recreation tonight.
Perfect.
They'll have David Sosnowski communicate with her.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Edward Frankel, followed by Margot Iser.
Okay, again, Mr. Torres, Ms. Peralta, and council. I wanted to double check something because I understand that we're going to be asking, or we're asking for plans to be set up for a dog park in the Quiet Canyon. And I'm trying to figure out why, if we already have a park master plan that shows where a dog park should be. I have nothing against dog parks. I got a couple of dogs myself. So I'm all grateful to have a dog park. But why are we going out and spending more city money to plan somewhere when we already have a park master plan that says where it should be or where the recommendations are? I'm just wondering, are we playing favorites? Are we doing any favors for somebody? It's just a question I'm asking. And talking about favorites, I was a little disappointed because I see that you were giving Councilmember Melendez a little bit of a hard time about where he is and the way he put it, but you didn't say anything about when Peralta wasn't there. People actually went to the house and no, from what I understand, nobody answered, or if they did, they didn't let him in. So you're giving one a hard time and you're letting the other one slide. That looks like favoritism to me. Just asking. And with that, also, that's another reason why, and I'm going to correct myself, I said to you out of courtesy that I was going to bring a recall. I'll correct that comment. I'll let you know that I've been receiving a lot of phone calls and text messages and people just getting a hold of me saying, when are you going to do this? We need to do this now. So it's not just me. There's a lot of people that have asked me to, that's why I'm saying it. That's what I'm bringing it up to you, because a lot of people have brought it up to my attention that that's what they want. And I even had another person, just when I said it, saying, hey, let's do it. So heads up. Thanks again.
Next speaker is Margot Iser, followed by Tila Gregorian.
Good evening. And first of all, I'm saying that I am letting you know that I could not review the agenda before the meeting because I could not access it via the city's website, nor did I pay the $14 that would have been required, that are supposedly required now to have it sent to me as a PDF via email. So just letting you know that there's a little issue that might need to be looked into about accessibility to the agendas before the meeting. I didn't necessarily want to come down and stand and look at it outside. So thank you. First of all, I want to say that I'm Margot Iser, Margot with a T, Iser with an E, and I'm a concerned citizen, a constituent. I live in District 2. I am also a taxpayer, a person, a voter, a taxpayer, and I am many others are very concerned, and you will find many petitions in the file cabinet in the administrative office under comments that are asking you to please before as soon as possible to fulfill the legal requirements, some legal requirements, and also the stipulations in the deed. Immediately declare what remains of the once world famous 18-hole championship golf course. And it'll be good for future generations and enhance the quality of life as ours if you immediately do what is necessary to please and it's one little detour. There's not as many homeless people as we thought there were. And I'm glad that they have that county that says that there could be other places for housing of adaptable or whatever they call it, kind of accommodating housing. But you must not let that land leave the proper public need for a remedy to the park poor status of our city, and it must immediately do whatever is necessary to declare it as a public park and open space. There could be some accommodating playground in that area, but that would be also, then you could also restore some of the native plants. It would become a really, really big, beautiful addition to our city, as I said, for everyone now, and it would enhance our life now and in the future. And that's what I've been accessing. I'm wanting you to please take us and do what we need you to do for us. And I thank you as soon as possible to have that done. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tila Gregorian, followed by Match 90640.
Good evening, council members, city staff, and residents. My name is Sheila Gregorian, resident in Montebello for most of my life now. And I really wish I had something nice to say, but the same old, that goes on. Well, before I go into the worst part of it, let me say Happy Women's Day to all the women of our beautiful community. And we hope to maintain it as a beautiful city. Last but not least, this has been, as a matter of fact, it's probably the most important issue in our city today. With our assistant manager leaving our city, I am very concerned about this. I mean, David, we had never had this happen in our city before. Since you have been manager, mayor, you just think you became the king of the city. You had our city manager that was out on medical for a long time due to you. And now we have Alicia is going to leave our city also because of you. What does it take to get you to resign? We do not want you, and certainly not as the mayor. How you got elected to office is beyond my understanding, but how you have handled that position is even worse. I mean, you had the opportunity to prove yourself to the community, and instead you became king of our city, which doesn't take very well with people in our community. We are a democracy. Our country is, our city is. And we do not like having kings, otherwise we would have kings. That we would pass on the torch from one generation to the other, just like England does. And they seem to be doing better than we are. So I just don't know what the answer to this is today. I just wish you'd go ahead and resign your position, because you're really not doing anything good for our city. I hope by the time, if you do not resign, by the time that you leave, your term is up as manager, that our city will still be standing and business is not leaving. We had a business person come up, and even the businesses are concerned about you, David. So I don't know what the answer is. Thank you.
Next speaker is Match 90640.
Yes, please.
Can you come up front for us, please?
This is
our 3 minutes.
This is for you.
But we'd
The
like you to come
city's
down with us, okay?
losing a big asset. I would know, because I know the countless hours you spent putting up with us. I'm sorry. One is too many, and I know you're not the first. I know you're not going to be the last, and I apologize. I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm big enough to apologize to you, and I'm sorry for the treatment that you've been receiving. You don't deserve that. No one deserves to be here till 1:30 in the morning and then expect to come at 7:30 in the morning the next day. So, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, the same day. None of you live here, you drive home and then come back. I'm glad each of you get home safe, but thank you for all that you do. It's a great loss to the city because you were doing multiple jobs for the price of one. I mean, look at a grant writer, and yet we don't have a grant writer. Thank you, MCAP, for all you do. And look at, I know some of them up there didn't even like the MCAP, but yet questioning and praising them. But thank you. And I know your family sacrifices, you have a little one at home, but this is for you. So if you can please accept this. Thank you.
That concludes all the speaker cards for general comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Clerk, and thank you to all of our speakers this evening. Moving on to staff communications on items of community interest. Ms. Salazar?
We have none to announce tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, adopt resolution number 2326, approving the draft fiscal year 2023-24 Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnerships Annual Action Plan and the fiscal year 2023-24 Recreation Youth Scholarship Program. Is there a staff presentation?
We have no presentation, however, Rosemary Parrish is here as a housing manager to answer any questions, and Joe Palumbi, the director. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I will open the public hearing for public comment at 8:25. Mr. City Clerk, are there any public comments?
No public comments on this agenda item, Mayor.
I will close the public hearing at 8:25. Seeing that there are no comments, it is to council for discussion. Going down the line, Mayor Pro Tem Peralta.
No questions at this moment.
Councilmember Jimenez. Councilmember Jimenez is absent. Councilmember Melendez, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions.
Councilmember Tamayo.
No questions, just one comment. I'm glad to see that the Choto money is being used. I know that's very restricted funds, and it's difficult to try to get entity or an agency to use those funds. So I'm glad to see that on there, so thank you.
Thank you. And as for myself, no questions or comments, so I will take a motion to approve the item.
I motion to approve.
Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem, is there a second?
I second.
Second by Councilmember Tamayo. Mr. City Clerk, if you can please call roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta?
Aye.
Councilmember Jimenez? Councilmember Melendez?
Aye.
Councilmember Tamayo?
Aye.
Mayor Torres?
Aye. That is 4 ayes and 1 absent. Moving on to regular business, item number 8, adopt resolution number 2328, approving a comprehensive memorandum of understanding between the City of Montebello and the Montebello Police Management Association. I would like to ask that this item be continued to the next meeting. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I motion. Or I second.
Motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Tamayo. Mr. City Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta?
Aye.
Councilmember Melendez?
Aye.
Councilmember Tamayo?
Aye.
Mayor Torres?
Aye. That is 4 ayes and 1 absent, with Councilmember Jimenez absent. And Ms. Salazar, if that can be continued to the next meeting. Moving on to the consent calendar, Mr. City Clerk, do we have any public comments on the items for the consent calendar?
Yes, we do have one for agenda item number 11.
Okay, so we'll be pulling agenda item number 11. And Mr. City Attorney, if you can please poll council as to consent calendar items. Just go down the line and ask if anyone wants to pull them.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, is there any items you'd like to pull off of consent?
Yes, 11 and 13.
And Councilmember Melendez?
Just like to speak on item number 11.
Okay, that's already been pulled. Councilmember Tamayo?
No items.
No items. And Mayor Torres?
I would like to pull item number 9. And I'd like to speak on number 11 as well.
Okay, so for the record, items number 9, 11, and 13 have been pulled off consent.
I show the same. And so with that, we, with a single motion, we will seek to approve items number 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15.
Mr. Mayor.
10, 12, 14, and 15.
I motion to approve those items.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. City Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Councilmember Jimenez, Councilmember Melendez, Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. That is 4 ayes and Councilmember Jimenez absent. So it looks like we'll be starting off with item number 9, approval of amendment number 2 to agreement number 3855 with Ultimate Maintenance Services for increased custodial services at various city facilities. And this was pulled by myself. Earlier this week, I had a chance to ask staff just about the expanded scope of this contract and the dollar figure. It seems that these services are slightly different than the services that this company already provides in the same general sphere, but still slightly different. And so my question would be, is if it's more appropriate to go to, one, if it's more appropriate to go to RFP for these services, and then 2, being that these services are in relation, and if it's not appropriate to go to RFP, given that these services are gonna be in part for our special events, our street fest, our heritage festivals, our parades and whatnot, how can we ensure tracking on these items to make sure that council has a full understanding of the cost of the special events that we put on? So that's a 2-part question.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So the reason for the recommendation to increase the service is because we have been tracking what we've been spending, both in terms of increased usage of rentals and other facilities, even city work areas. This contract was put out, the RFP was put out in January 21 during the middle of COVID, so we've had a lot more usage, even by our own employees, because a lot of them were working from home during that time. And then on top of that, the increase in special events, this company has been utilized to prepare for those events at the parks, cleaning up the restrooms before those events, helping to clean up after. So we have been tracking that, and that's the reason for the recommendation to increase the amount. In terms of RFP, so that our typical contracts are 3 initial years and then 2 optional extension years. The 3 years is going to be coming up here in January of next year. So if the council direction is to go through RFP and go look for a contract that more, or revise the scope so that it more reflects the actual usage that we are experiencing now, I would recommend that we extend, at least take it through the end of the 3rd year. And between now and then, we can develop an RFP and do an RFP in time for a new service come January of next year.
Okay, understood. So in the meantime, as we develop that RFP, I would like to commit to tracking these expenses. As you noted, you've kind of been tracking what the historical numbers have been to provide this projection. But going forward, being that we're having greatly expanded city events, we're bringing back the fireworks show, 2-day Heritage Festival. There was a point in time in our city where a $20,000 fireworks show was a big conversation. Now it looks like we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for these events, and so just want to make sure that as we uplift the city and as we provide more opportunities for recreation and for participation, which is what our residents are asking for, that we're just kind of understanding like where those dollars are going. So I think. Perhaps if you could provide, in addition to the approval of this item, as stated in the recommendations, kind of like a breakout of how we expect these what these services to cost for the anticipated special events, I think that would be very helpful.
Sure. And I'll work with staff and the vendor to make sure the invoices reflect the additional services separately.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate that. So with that being said, I will call for a motion to approve the item.
I motion to approve.
We have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Councilmember Tamayo. Mr. City Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Councilmember Jimenez, Councilmember Melendez, Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. That is 4 ayes and 1 absent, that being Councilmember Jimenez. The item passes. Moving on to item number 11, approval of engagement letter, task order number 7 for landscape architectural design services by Mark Thomas and Company Incorporated, proposed Montebello Dog Park. Mr. City Clerk, we have a public comment.
Yes, we do. Linda Nichols, speaking on agenda item number 11.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Linda Nicholas, address on file. This amount that you want to spend, $37,966,000, that's a lot of money. That's almost $40,000 for plans for a dog park, as previously told, was already included in the master plan, number 1. Number 2, I was at a meeting that the former mayor had with Brad Perrin when she mentioned that she was going to have a dog park put in the city. And he says, oh, we can help you. No. She said, no, I'm going to pay it. It's not going to cost the city a penny. So you don't need to spend this because the dog park will be done and it's not going to cost the city a dime. She's going to take care of it because she can afford it. So do not spend $40,000 that you could use for something else. You don't need to do this. So stop wasting money that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us.
Thank you, Ms. Nicholas, for your comment. It is at the council level for discussion. Mayor Pro Tem Peralta and Councilmember Melendez and myself pulled the item. So going down the order, we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Peralta.
Yes, so the reasoning why I pulled this item is because I want to ask the Assistant City Manager in regards to ensuring that we have adequate community input when it comes to the renditions that will be executed for the 2 sites that are being identified. So I just wanted to understand if that where that community input process would come into play. Would it be prior to the renditions being executed, taking in our residents' input, or would it be after the fact of where the renditions are then made, and then we receive feedback from the community?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to invite James Enriquez to speak on that, as he's been coordinating efforts with the landscape architecture on this service.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. We can actually do it at either time. It'd be my recommendation, just from past experience on projects, that it'd probably be more useful to reach out and have a community meeting when we have at least the concept that we can show the community, and it'll help guide some of the comments that they might have on what we're planning.
Okay, understood. And I would say that just out of my personal concern in regards to one of the sites just being closer to the Armenian monument, I think personally, I think it's going to be really important to ensure that we do get that feedback. I know that there's another site that is away from the monument and already kind of has the entrance to the other side of the golf course, as well as the parking structure that is currently, or parking area that is currently being unutilized, that would be complementary to that site. And so I just wanted to ensure that that community input process would be a part of this item. Would we have to give direction in regards to how we want that community input process to come forward with this item?
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and so I know some of my colleagues pulled it, so I'll go ahead and allow them to speak prior to making that motion.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Melendez, your comments?
Yes, thank you. No, just sharing some of the concerns that I know some of the residents that spoke on this item. I know we have a park master plan and it does include a dog park in there. So just trying to see how this is going to impact that, and just, you know, want to have a discussion with the council whether that's the best area to have a dog park. I think it's a no-brainer that we all want to have a dog park in the community. We want it for our residents. I know there's going to be a lot of activity going on up there. There's a lot of construction happening. There's going to be, you know, we're having a Top Golf. We're having a lot of different amenities, and just don't know if that's going to be the best adequate area for a dog park. And again, we do have a park master plan. So I think it was I think we have it at Henry Acuna, where the dog park is supposed to be at, and that seems to be a little bit more feasible for residents to go there, and for it just seems like it's a better area. So I'm not opposed to a dog park whatsoever. I just want to see if maybe we can really have a conversation, and if we're already kind of mapping out we already mapped out our parks and what we want each of the parks in the city. Again, I think, in my opinion, I think a dog park in Henry Acuna or somewhere around that area, or Shia. I'm not sure where it's at, but it could be it might be a little bit more feasible. But again, yeah, just wanted to share my thoughts on that, and hopefully we can have a little bit more discussion, and looking forward to also the community outreach and seeing, you know, what the community wants in regards to that specific area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Melendez. And as for my comments, I think to address some of the questions as to the location and what's going on here, definitely appreciate the offer by the former mayor to pay for this if she's still willing to. I think the city would be happy to receive those funds. But moving beyond that, the part of the reason why the location is being considered as it is that the funds that are being considered to pay for this project come from the same place where the park would go. So basically, it's a train of logic that, you know, that the money be reinvested into the same property and to build up the amenities that are there. So pretty simple, straightforward explanation. I hope you guys appreciate it. As for that, if there are any other questions or comments by my colleagues, I would entertain a motion to approve the item. And Mayor Pro Tem, I believe you wanted to.
Yeah, maybe just to have just a little bit further discussion, trying to understand your guys' perspective of how you would like to see the community engagement process. Would that be, I know that a recommendation was given in regards to after the renditions are made, to be able to get feedback and then work towards more of a final draft of that. Are you guys okay with that? Is that something that's palatable to my colleagues?
Councilmember Tamayo? Hold on real quick, Councilmember Melendez. Councilmember Tamayo?
If we can incorporate, it would be good, the community participation. I know you talked about it after the conceptual plan, but like before the conceptual plan, just to get an idea of what it is that they want to see, and then draft up a conceptual plan and then revisit the community input. That would be my suggestion.
Councilmember Melendez?
Yeah, I agree with the Mayor Pro Tem suggestion. I just wanted to have a point of clarification to one of your comments, Mayor. The funds that we're getting for this, they might be coming from that site, but they're not tied specifically or not mandated to use that funding for that specific site. So some of that funding that you're mentioning can be used for other projects in the city and for other areas. I just want to make sure that we don't confuse the residents in regards to how this is getting paid, because it's not tied to the specific site.
I appreciate your comment. Thank you, Councilmember Melendez. And I guess just in terms of the kind of outreach that we would do and being sensitive to the Armenian community and the grounds that are very sacred with the Armenian Genocide Monument, I do feel that it'd be more appropriate to have a conversation on the front end of the project design, just to avoid any issues or concerns later on down the line. Maybe that can just kind of be a little bit more broad to understand, what their perception of that would be. But, having a more robust community outreach program where we're starting to solicit feedback and really get into the details of what the project would entail and look like, maybe that's more appropriate after the concept has been brought forward.
Okay, so I will motion to approve item 11 with the component that community outreach will be done prior to the rendition to then guide the execution of those different sites that were identified.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Councilmember Tamayo. Mr. City Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta?
Aye.
Councilmember Jimenez?
No.
Councilmember Melendez? Councilmember Tamayo?
Aye.
Mayor Torres?
Aye. And the vote passes with 4 ayes and 1 nay. Moving on to item number 13, authorization to issue a request for proposals, RFP number 2312, for an adaptive programming expansion and accessibility assessment. And this item was pulled by Mayor Pro Tem Peralta.
Yes, so I just pulled the item. I know that there were concerns in regards to what the city is doing in regards to accessibility when it comes to adaptive programming, as well as accessibility to facilities in the city of Montebello. And so I just did want to highlight that this item is something that will help identify and really assess how we can expand accessibility to adaptive programming, as well as beginning to really assess our facilities in ways that we can improve them. And just to translate that for our resident that did talk about this, solo me gustaría dar la explanación de que este item que estamos ahorita hablando es para autorizar el requesto de propuestas para una evaluación de accesibilidad de instalaciones para el Departamento de Recreación y Servicios Comunitarios para jóvenes y personas con discapacidades. Sé que tuvimos un residente que es muy vocal y que le interesa mucho los intereses de nuestros comunitarios en Montebello que tienen discapacidades y este item va a ser algo que los va a ayudar a poder analizar cómo podemos ahora expandir los programas de deportes para nuestros niños con discapacidades y también para accesar nuestras facilidades en la ciudad para ver cómo podemos integrar más ayuda en hacer nuestros facilities. I don't know if I'm translating it correctly, but I apologize. That was a very rude comment, but I'm trying my best here, and I hope that our residents who are hearing and appreciate that. But we are working on this, and so I did want to make sure that we address that because those are concerns that I take very seriously, and it's something that I am really passionate as well about advocating and addressing for adapted youth sports and ensuring that our facilities in Montebello are actually accessible to all those of all abilities in the city. And so with that, I'm very excited and proud to motion for this item.
Thank you, Councilmember Peralta, and I apologize for the audience member that made an inappropriate remark about your upbringing. So with that motion on the floor, is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councilmember Tamayo. Mr. City Clerk?
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Councilmember Jimenez, Councilmember Melendez, Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye, and the item passes unanimously. That concludes our consent calendar, and being that there are no public comments outstanding, moving on to AB 1234 travel reports. I'll go down the list asking if my colleagues have anything to report. Mayor Pro Tem Peralta?
None? Actually, did we haven't had a meeting yet after the fact of
Cal Cities.
Cal Cities, did we? Okay.
No, not yet.
Oh, no, okay, no, we did. So, yes, just to report that I was in attendance of the California League of Cities, and again, a very extraordinary conference where we have cities across the state of California coming together to learn about different policies to be able to address some of the greatest needs of our state. I really love this conference because it's an opportunity for us to really understand best practices and policies that are being implemented in other regions of California, not necessarily our internal county bubble. We were able to really use this opportunity to advocate for more homelessness funding. And one of my favorite sessions was where I talked earlier today in regards to understanding inclusionary housing ordinances in our local cities and kind of the innovative aspect of now cities expanding inclusionary housing ordinances where what that is, it's that new developments would require that a certain percentage of units would be dedicated to be affordable units. Now that targets new development, and what this new expansion would target would be older developments that never paid an in lieu fee for affordable housing or never actually included affordable units within their complex. And so it would be based on a tax that would then be given to ensure that that money would go towards the city being able to use to then create more affordable housing. And so overall, really great conference, very excited to have been there and really have learned from policymakers across the state. And that concludes my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Jimenez?
We all went to, we were all there at the same conference, so I think it's by far one of the best ones that I've been able to attend since I started on the council.
Councilmember Melendez?
Yes, Cal Cities, we all attended. There was a lot of sessions, a lot of good opportunity for advocacy with many of the state legislators. We had a meeting with our own Senator Archuleta, and we discussed many of the issues that were going on with a lot of his cities in the district. So, yeah, it was a great advocacy couple of days, and I'm hopeful that the state's listening to some of our concerns and we can pass legislation that can help us out over here at the local level. Thank you.
Councilmember Tamayo?
So I also had the opportunity to attend the City Leaders Summit in Sacramento, and this allowed me to see firsthand state legislation in action. I attended a committee meeting at the Capitol building in Sacramento. And at the conference, many of the sessions addressed the pressing issues facing our city and our community, such as homelessness, inclusionary housing has been mentioned before, crime prevention, community outreach, and other topics. One matter in particular that I hope to put into practice, it was in a workshop entitled How Cities Can Fight Crime with Civil Litigation. And in this workshop, we were presented with some legislative tools to shut down properties that are a nuisance in the community. And we have identified actually an abandoned property here in Council District 1 that we may be able to hopefully use some of these concepts and put them into action. So I'll continue to keep learning and looking for ways to improve our Montebello community.
Thank you, Councilmember Tamayo. And first of all, to kind of take off from one of the points that you brought in terms of addressing crime through civil litigation, Ms. Salazar, that might be something that we can start having a little bit of a side conversation about to see what it would be like to develop a policy and a procedure for achieving those results. Essentially, it's a wide coordination effort between code enforcement, police, and the city attorney's office to kind of very extensively document the issue and then bring it eventually, using legal means to take possession and to improve the property. That's something that, as you mentioned, there are properties around town that could definitely benefit from that. And I think just even having some of those enforcement actions, we might see property owners and homeowners start to take better care of their own. In one of the instances that they gave in their presentation, the property owner wasn't even aware of what was happening at their property. So there's definitely a lot of benefits to that mechanism, and thank you for noting that. As Councilmember Melendez noted, we also had a chance to sit down with Senator Archuleta and some of our colleagues from other cities, including Downey and Whittier and Artesia. And it was a really amazing moment because a lot of us get to do advocacy, through our personal relationships, whether it be a phone call or a text message or seeing them at an event. But being in a room of several cities and really just drilling down on some of the topics that are most important to us, I think is a unique opportunity to impress what we're facing here at home, really the ones with the closest connection to the community. And so, we're seeking over $1 billion in funding for various initiatives, one of them being unfunded mandates. There are laws and regulations that are created at a state level that cities must abide by. For example, one of them is that our police units are required to carry Narcan, and that's something that the city has to pay for, and that's a cost that we incur. There are a lot of different regulations that are like that, and our general funds are greatly burdened by that legislation that's passed in Sacramento, really without any kind of consideration for our general fund or what we're going through. So one of the things was asking the state to apply funding for those unfunded mandates. Another story that I told with Senator Archuleta was really about the attempts that Montebello is making to address homelessness in our city through our MCAP program, through Operation Stay Safe, through the expansion of MCAP at Beverly Hospital and various different initiatives that we have. I told the senator that Montebello is making very strong steps and making that signal that this is a priority for our community, but that the state can now come in and back us up, because right now we're relying on grant funding and special funding for these projects. Operation Stay Safe, for example, is a pilot project. Once those programs expire, our general fund would have to pick up that cost. And as we saw in MCAP's presentation just a couple of meetings ago, that cost just in the last few years is about $5 or $6 million. So if we lost that grant funding, if for whatever reason we weren't able to get special revenue sources, we may have to cut back our programs, because from where I sit, the city's core competencies and our wheelhouse is public safety, it's infrastructure, and that is really where we live. Helping address the housing crisis is outside of our core issues, and it may very well possibly fall off. So overall, a very productive few days up in Sacramento. Really enjoyed it. Next, council orals. Ms. Jimenez, I believe you are the only one, so you have the floor.
David, I should have asked you this before, but I just wanted to see if we had a date for Stride for Pride, because we have, well, can you come up?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. Councilmember Jimenez, the date we have on calendar for would be the third annual Stride for Pride is June 24th, usually that last Saturday of June.
That's it. I just wanted to make sure we had an official date, because we have several events throughout the county. So that's it. That's all. The ad hoc for cannabis. So I'm sure that all of you colleagues here on the dais have received calls and are aware of all the break-ins in some of these businesses down there. Some of them have had several, multiple break-ins the past couple of months. So I'd like to ask for if we could bring back this this ad hoc committee. And I'd like to be a part of it, of course, since a lot of the businesses are in both my district and yours, David. So again, I'm sure that they reached out to you and with the same concerns. And I think it's important that we sit down with them and our staff and try to figure out a way with our police department and try to find a solution or some sort of plan to help them.
Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. Are there any questions or comments from my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Peralta?
In regards to issues of cannabis, I think that they're extremely sensitive. Just seeing, you know, the mishaps and headlines that have really showcased a lot of issues that cities across Southeast LA have currently been facing. I think I would feel more comfortable having conversations about this issue, whether it's a special meeting or you know, publicly with the community, not necessarily through an ad hoc.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Tamayo.
No comment.
Councilmember Melendez.
Yeah, no, I would support Councilmember Jimenez's bringing back the ad hoc. I've also received many calls, and I would be comfortable with the idea of meeting with some of these operators that are having. There's definitely a lot of break-ins that they're having, safety concerns, and just having a conversation. I think the two districts that might be in that area would be yours, Mayor, and as well as the Councilmember Jimenez's. So I would support having the ad hoc, providing recommendation. I think with ad hoc, we all get the reports, so there's no danger of not having that information reported out. And of course, we can always have special study sessions afterwards and just continue the dialogue. But I think there are some specific issues that need to start being addressed in regards to them that I would just vote to support my colleague.
Thank you, Councilmember Melendez. One of the main issues that I have with ad hocs is that, I mean, historically, as long as I've been on council, they've largely kind of operated in secret with not much being reported out. We are seeing more reports coming out of ad hoc sessions. So, you know, we're getting the manpower to get that done. But I think, as my colleague mentioned, these are issues that are of great concern to the community. I think our chief of police and his force, you know, works very hard to address these issues. I believe that they've been in close contact with the cannabis operators to understand the facts of these break-ins and to investigate who they're being conducted by. I don't believe that that council members would know much more about public safety than what our chief and our public safety can provide. However, as the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, this being that this is an item of community concern, there may be a value to having a public discussion about this, where people can come forward and talk about their experiences, perhaps issues that we haven't heard before. And I think also importantly to give our department a chance to talk about the ways that they're tackling the issue, because this is not something that the city takes lightly. And the Montebello Police Department takes the safety of our residents very seriously. So I do believe that the most appropriate forum would be a public one where the public could learn about the efforts that we're making to address smells in the neighborhood, the efforts that we're making to address theft and larceny and burglaries, any concerns about safety, and so on and so forth. So for that, to my colleague, I would offer an amendment to your request that we schedule a special meeting to discuss the issue, but I would say that otherwise I would not be in support of an ad hoc. Ms. Jimenez, are you open to that suggestion? So I guess the item ends without comment. So with that being said, and with business being concluded, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
I second.
And we are adjourned at 9:03.